Right.
Often it was your special blankie, that you could sniff and I don't know, what am I doing? Kind of like touch in a certain kind of way.
Sensation.
And
Even though I didn't think this was an anxiety bag, it probably is, and it's full of all the things that everybody would usually have.
and I was very, very, very disappointed, very shocked, and very sad. And I still am. I'm all of those things. I really am. Hello and welcome to the Help My Child's Anxious podcast with me, Vanessa Feltz, and my child therapist daughter, Saskia Joss. Who are we calling out to this week?
We have had incredible numbers worldwide this week, and what it tells me always is that there are people struggling with anxiety and children with anxiety all over the world, and we are here to help you, and we're very, very pleased you found us. This week, we were in the top 100 in Saudi Arabia. Hello, Saudi Arabia.
Hi.
We were in the top 100 in Hong Kong.
Hello, Hong Kong.
In Egypt. And in Turkey. So we're very, very pleased you're here, and we're very, very hopeful that we can help you find different ways to help your children relax and to have a fabulous summer as a family.
And it is really just proof, isn't it, that child anxiety is a huge concern in every country in the world.
It absolutely is. And I think sometimes people underestimate it because it's a children's issue. But you can see parents around the world are struggling, and they're trying to support children in an ever-changing world that feels much more scary than it ever did, with all different threats that they didn't have growing up. And you can see why that would make parents extremely anxious as well as children.
Absolutely. Well, this week, Saskia,
Yes.
you are introducing to me and the universe
Yes.
something I've never, ever heard of.
Yes.
But I actually already rather like the idea of, because we've been talking about this. Obviously, we don't just sit here and make
Because
this
it's
up.
arrived.
We
have a
work
chat
on this
first.
show
Yes.
beforehand. And it's equipment to
Yes.
deal with anxiety in your child. And it's the first I've heard of this, even as a concept.
Yes, it's a new internet trend. It's going wild across TikTok, which is usually, in this case, adult women showing a bag that they've prepared for themselves, which they're calling their anxiety bag.
Right.
And they bring it out and they show you what's inside their anxiety bag. So I thought I would show you, for example, mine is not an anxiety bag, it's my real bag, but I thought I would show you the kinds of things people are putting in their anxiety bag so that you might know what's going on.
All right, hang on. And then
Yes.
we're going to talk about whether it is a good idea or
Yes, we are.
not to prepare an anxiety bag for your child and provide your child with an anxiety bag. So
Yes.
we're going to A, show what the kind of content could
Yes.
be, and then B, discuss whether it's a good
Yes.
idea.
So the point of the anxiety bag is if you know you're an anxious person, or in this case, you've got an anxious child, you prepare your bag in the morning with things that you think will improve your feelings of anxiety later. We can talk about which ones are actually effective as well, why they would be a good choice and why they might not as well,
Right.
in terms of what we know about anxiety and its chemical makeup. But basically, the idea is that people will show the things that they think are supporting them to manage anxiety on a daily basis, and they bring their bag out like this. Ta-da! My bag looks like a small house. Your bag does not have to look like a small house. It can look like anything you like. But the first thing is people are choosing comfort pets or comfort toys, even adults, because this one, for example, is a Care Bear. You might say it's extremely nostalgic. I grew up with Care Bears. That really makes me feel like my real self. You might find a toy or something squeezy and lovely, either to attach to your bag or put in your bag, that might make you feel more relaxed, not just to decorate it as you might think. You might need a labubu or something like that. That makes you feel like you could give it a good squeeze when you're feeling anxious.
Okay, can I just interrupt to ask
Yes.
something? Okay, so when I was a little girl, and long before that, children would have something that people who were experts on this kind of stuff would call a transition object.
That's right.
Often it was your special blankie, that you could sniff and I don't know, what am I doing? Kind of like touch in a certain kind of way.
Sensation.
And, put it by your ear and, you could just do that.
Snuggle into it a little
And the
bit.
idea was it wasn't always only a blanket. It could be your special teddy or it
Yeah.
could be something like that. And the idea was that it was taking a little bit of your mummy
And your
from
house.
home.
Yeah, the safety you
The
have at home.
smell, the feel, the reminder of home with you, and you're only little and you're in,
Yes.
you're at nursery school and it's all very strange. And then you bring out your lovely blankie and that's your comfort object or your transition object.
Yes.
Is this a bit like that?
I think it's exactly like that.
Okay.
I think there's also this element that we now have far more awareness of, generally, that people have some sort of response to sensory experience that no one talked about really ever before. There were children in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, babies who put on their scratchy school trousers and say, these are the worst trousers ever, I hate them. And parents would say, you have to wear them to go to school. Whereas now we know that children will find sensory things much more uncomfortable than others. And that if we take those things seriously, we can release a feeling of being uncomfortable from our children very quickly. We find the right trousers, your child can go to school without thinking about their trousers, which allows them to be more present and have a much better day. Children who are highly sensory or take in a lot of sensory information are going to feel much more uncomfortable more of the time. So if we can reduce that pressure, we can help children. So you might assume that, yes, partly it's this feeling of transition, moving from place to place, taking yourself with you where you go, but also you might say it's sensory, it's tactile, it's soft, it's relaxing, comforting to have something small and cute and nice with you, and also makes you feel positive to look at it. I look at it and I think that's very positive. How nice. I think the interesting part about this is I'm about to reveal about myself that even though I didn't think this was an anxiety bag, it probably is, and it's full of all the things that everybody would usually have to manage anxiety. I just put it in there automatically. That's what I did.
It's so funny because in my bag, all I've normally got is my wallet, my credit card,
and your phone,
my keys, my phone, reluctantly, and a roast chicken frozen, just gently defrosting at the bottom of the bag.
That's right. Yes,
that's basically it. I never thought of my bag as a comfort bag, or to try and provide me with stability or any feelings at all.
I don't know. I didn't realise I was doing it myself, but this actually is what is attached to my bag. I didn't even have to put this on for the video. That is what I have on my bag.
I can confirm she arrived with a bag like that.
I am showing you as if this is slightly humorous, except this is actually my bag. So hands up, maybe I was already doing the trend before it even became a trend. I don't know. Okay. So the other things you might have are things to manage temperature, like a fan, because obviously if you are feeling overheated and overwhelmed, you might be more likely to, for example, have a panic attack or feel like you can't manage because you've sort of reached a limit of sensation. You're too full of stuff, you're too hot, you're too overwhelmed.
And I think it's very funny that this week, when it's particularly hot, so we're recording this in the heat wave.
Yes.
Both your children behaved so marvellously in sleeping in their own beds for a week or whatever it was they had to do. They accomplished a Herculean task.
They did.
And they were allowed to choose any prize at all in the universe.
Yes, that's right.
And I thought they might choose a Jensen Interceptor and a flat in the south of France.
Yeah, or a
they
jet
both
or something.
chose fans, not that kind, the kind that you switch on.
Yeah, the electric kind.
And they're 3 and 7.
They're obviously really hot.
They're obviously
really hot, and they just wanted a fun. Yes, so the other things you might choose is sensory toys or tactile toys. This is a big box of slime.
How come you've got that in your bag?
Well, sometimes I need a bit of slime for myself, I just need to play with a bit of slime. This one's actually very sticky. I probably should add a bit of what they call activator to it so it doesn't stick on everything. But you might think that the reason you would have this is for distraction purposes. I'm going to be all sticky for the rest of the podcast. That's okay. The idea is that you're trying to think, if I were trying to take the pressure away from this anxiety experience by putting things in my bag that are partially to actually make you feel better, like cool you down, or we're going to have I've got a huge bottle of water, for example. I know that people in my generation have a comfort water bottle with them at all times. It's very different. When in the 90s, no one drank anything. I don't remember.
I wouldn't dream of taking a comfort water bottle with me, or any water. Or
you don't really drink any water anyway.
Yeah.
But the idea that having a water bottle with you would be very anti-anxiety sounds silly, except it's absolutely true. Cortisol is the only neurotransmitter that is water soluble. So if you drink more water when you're anxious, you are less likely to feel the cortisol in your system.
That's amazing.
So I absolutely agree. Do have a comfort water bottle full of water when you're an anxious person. Other sensory tactile things, these are pom-poms. I didn't have that in my bag usually. That just was here. A snack, because if you're hungry, you're going to be very likely to be able to because of spiral rather than manage your feelings. If you're empty, when you suddenly get full of other things, you're not going to be able to regulate yourself there. Some kind of distraction. I've got a little puzzle. That's always nice. And then something soft and nice to play with. I think then the other thing is obviously things like headphones for listening to music, and also knowing your child, know what they actually like. They like playing Snap, so I'm going to bring Snap in my bag. The idea is that it doesn't literally have to be an actual bag that you bring around with anxiety things. The idea is that if you know that your child is likely to get overwhelmed, or you are likely to get overwhelmed, having the things you might actually need, and for example, if you're an adult and you're on medication, to bring your medication with you so you don't find yourself in a situation where you're deeply overwhelmed, alone in public, without the things that make you feel better. So the idea is that it's about, I think what it really does is add a feeling of preparedness to something you can't control. The reason why anxiety is so difficult to manage is because it's not something we choose to feel. Our body decides on our behalf that something is dangerous. So you're not sure when your body will tell you something is worrying. So being prepared acts as a sort of counterbalance to the idea that you could get overwhelmed or sidetracked by your anxiety, and by being prepared, you're more ready for it, you're more available to sort of stand up against it.
All right. So now you've given us some idea of what you might put in an
Yes.
anxiety bag. So now I'd like to ask you a pretty important question,
Yes.
which is, do we think an anxiety bag that is called an anxiety bag, as in, Josephine, go and get your anxiety bag, we're going out,
Yes.
is that a good thing or a bad thing? Because you might think it labels a child. It says you are so anxious, you can't even go to the greengrocer without carrying your anxiety bag. Let's not forget the anxiety bag. Let's pack the anxiety bag. What's in it?
Exactly.
And then you might say that you would sort of generate a whole level of anxiety about the anxiety bag.
right.
And also this child will have to say to everyone, well, that's my anxiety bag. I've got this in it.
Go
and
on
that's
a
in it.
school trip, make sure we
Ex-
bring it.
exactly.
Mrs. Blah, blah,
so you
where's my
might
anxiety
say
bag? Absolutely.
it adds to the anxiety, and not only that, it adds to the kind of different feeling that a child who experiences anxiety and a parent of an anxious child already feels. So really, you've got your swimming things, you've got your pencil case, you've already got your blinking stuff. Do you also need to add to your anxiety with your anxiety bag? Because you could say it's kind of metaphor for your anxiety, which you're now carrying around with you everywhere you go. I'm anxious. Look, here's my anxiety bag, which of course you don't want.
I think you're absolutely right. And I also think that it becomes it adds to a feeling of reliance. If I don't have my anxiety bag, I won't be able to survive.
Yeah,
Which is exactly the opposite of what we're trying to do by having an anxiety bag, telling children they're resilient enough, capable enough, with some chewing gum and some headphones, they should be absolutely fine to do the next thing. If we're saying, if you don't have your anxiety bag, all is lost, we're really amping up the level of anxiety that exists.
Exactly.
So I think the idea is that firstly, the person who should be in charge of it is the parent rather than the child. And if a child is going on a school trip, you might say something like, oh, I know that sometimes when you get a bit anxious, chewing gum really helps. Let's pop some in your pocket. Rather than saying that this is the only way, without it, we can't manage. Who's got the anxiety bag? You're going to obviously add a huge amount of anxiety about the anxiety bag and separate your child as the kind of person who needs to take an anxiety bag. So I think what you could call it is your confidence kit, which is this idea that instead of needing it to fight your anxiety, you're using these tools to feel more confident in the moment. It's a sort of starter pack for getting yourself ready for the next thing. So resilience is like one of the things parents call me to talk about the whole time. He's not resilient, he struggles with this, she's not resilient. And resilience is learned over time. But resilience, I think parents get confused about what it means. Resilience is what people think is this like courage to overcome. It isn't really that. It's feeling the thing you really feel and doing the difficult thing anyway. Resilience is not being without scared feelings. It's having scared feelings or being worried about something or being sure you won't do well and still doing it anyway.
I think most people think of resilience as the ability to bounce back. So you've had a horrible disappointment, you've had a horrible shock, someone has died, you didn't get into the school that your parents kept saying was the good one, your best friend has dumped you and you just don't know why, everyone in your class has been French kissing and no one seems to want to French kiss you, or whatever it is, or your brother or sister's always doing brilliantly at everything and in all the teams and you're not, or whatever it is, you're getting a blow, you're dealt a blow. And I think people think resilience is, you've had this horrible blow, it has been a shock, it has knocked you for six, you are upset, you do feel sad, but somehow or other you find within you the ability to, as everyone wants you to do, bounce back. So you show up, you smile, you put a good face on it, you do go to the party, even though every single person at the party knows you just failed the exam or your grandma just died. You do go, and that is resilience. It's having this sort of metal, the kind of inner core of strength that somehow enables you to, another thing people love, soldier on. And I would say that as somebody who's doing it right now.
I was about to ask how you're doing.
Well, last week, it was only on Wednesday, and what day is this? Tuesday, so it's less than a week ago, I was summoned to be told that my television show, which I thought had a year's commission, is ending on July the 17th. And I was very, very, very disappointed. very shocked, and very sad. And I still am. I'm
Yeah.
all of those things. You know, I really am. Is it the end of my world? No.
Yeah, you're
I
very
know
busy,
that.
aren't you?
Well,
You're very busy anyway.
well, I'm busy, and also I know that, you know, health is important, family and friends, and, you know, it's happened to me before in life, and all of those sorts of things. So is it enough to flatten me utterly, confine me to bed, and have me weeping 24/7? No, but it's pretty,
Yeah, it's pretty painful.
pretty sad,
Yeah.
and you know, hurtful and upsetting, and all of those things. And I'm trying to summon every inch of resilience that I garnered over my lengthy sojourn on the planet to still smile. I still have to present the show for another 19 shows. And also I like presenting the show, so I'm sort of pleased and also sad to do it for 19 more shows. You know, do the podcast with you. I'm on LBC every Saturday. You know, I've got lots going on. But the point is, it does take some resilience
That's right.
to put a jolly face on it and keep on doing it when really you just want to go, my show. Oh, wow. Oh, no, I'm so upset. So, and I'm a grown up, and I've been around the block far too many times. And it is very difficult. So can I just say that when people say, children, they really need resilience, they may well be in an excellent place themselves, the adults saying this.
That's right.
And just kind of summoning up this mythical, magical resilience, which is actually bloody damn difficult to do. As I'm doing it right now, and it's really hard to do. You don't really feel like doing it. And when you're a child and you haven't had it,
and you've got no experience of what will happen, this kind of ability to carry on, as you said, and it's a shame that it's true. You've been through similar things in your career before, and you've seen that you then can carry on and do other great things, meet other great people, make projects that are fantastic, write a book, there's loads and loads of other things out there to do. Just when you can't do one thing, you can do lots of others. You can see that even that is sometimes not enough to make you feel better.
No, it's really hard. So I just say all this kind of, they must have more resilience. It's like, mate, resilience is bloody damn difficult to muster, whoever you are. And however much you give yourself a stern lecture, and however life has prepared you with sorrow and disappointment and all of that, a fresh one is a fresh blow. It's damn difficult. So it's a bit like when children fall over and really, really hurt their knee, and grown-ups like, come on, you know, brush it up, dust it off, you're fine. And then once I was carrying a huge laundry basket, and so I had no hands to help myself. I fell off a step into the garden, and it hurt so much. I felt so ashamed of myself for the number of times I said to you and your sister, come on, just, you know, brush it down, you'll be fine. I didn't feel fine. It really hurt like hell. And resilience, I'm telling you right now at this moment in my life, which is pretty difficult.
Requiring a lot.
Yeah, don't start expecting your children to just sum up great big vats of resilience, because it's really hard, even for grown-ups. And I just want to say that, though, it's nothing to do with an anxiety bag.
I think what we're talking about is this idea that we're trying to teach our children resilience over time. We're trying to show them there are ways to feel how you feel and still get on with what you have to do. So we're not saying you're not allowed sad feelings, you're not allowed to be worried, you're not allowed to be anxious. We're saying the resilience is feeling anxious and doing it anyway. In your case, feeling sad and doing it anyway. Doing what you have to do, doing what people want to do, doing it anyway. And that's the hard part. So the idea of the anxiety bag, I think, is instead of saying you can't survive without this bag, if we forget it, all is lost. It's saying, actually, you're the kind of person who does loads of cool stuff the whole time, even when you're scared. Look at how much you've done the last year. Look, giving your children this ability to have perspective, which you've got from your own experience in your life. They're too little to be able to make perspective. So we're going to show them, well, you know, last week when you went to the play date, you weren't sure you liked it, and actually you had a really, really great time. One of the things I do is, which I think is really funny, is sometimes with my children, when they've made a big fuss about doing something they don't really fancy doing because they're children and all children do it, when they finish and they've had a really nice time, I film them saying that they've had a really nice time so I can show them the next time they don't want to do it, that actually they themselves said they were going to have a nice time. Does it work? No, they still always, you know, they're children, they make a fuss. But the idea is that they can use their own perspective, their own memory, their own experience to start building up tools and blocks that help you see that there is this perspective, that things do carry on, that life continues, that there are other great things that can happen. And I'm absolutely certain that's true for you. In the same way that I'm certain it's true for the children that I work with. Then they say, you know, I didn't get into the secondary school I was meant to. I didn't do this, I didn't do that. You know, my job is not to fix it and make it better. It's to say, that was rough, but I've seen you survive other things. And I think that's the thing with this anxiety bag. We're trying to reframe it and show our children that actually there are loads of things that can help them feel better when they don't feel like themselves.
And I would also take the razz out of the whole thing and say, let's not get anxious about the anxiety bag.
Exactly.
Let's not carry around a whole load of anxiety.
That's right.
Do you think chewing gum might help? Do you want to put in a few peanuts? Or if you're not allergic to them, for God's sake. If you're allergic, don't put them in.
Don't.
Exactly. And, you know, anything you think can add to your confidence today?
That's right.
Yeah, your bottle of water,
The whole
your
idea is
whatever
we're
it is.
teaching children resilience over time. We're not embarrassing them for the feelings they have now, and we're showing them that they regularly complete things they thought they couldn't. And that when they're on the way to do the entrance exam or have a play date they haven't had for a long time or go to a birthday party when they haven't been to one, the things that helped last time were this, so we'll try them again. But we're not completely reliant on those things. And there's also like an insurmountable, huge amount of an array, a pantheon, a plethora of different possible options that could help them. The universe is full of other things. It's not just the 5 things in this bag are the only things that can help
When
you.
I was a little girl, there used to be these things. They were in these little plastic round things like about that size. You know, you get those nail varnish remover pads
Yeah.
now in those little. They were like in those, and they were called quickies, and they were just a cold wipe.
Right.
So nobody thought quickies was sexual or rude or had any double entendre whatsoever, but they were just called quickies, and they were in a little plastic thing that kept them moist or I don't know. And we desperately wanted them. Everyone wanted them. All children were in the summer. You just wanted them.
Yeah.
And if you had your quickies in this little thing and you could wipe your face with them, it just felt marvelous. They were just a marvelous thing.
Exactly.
So something like a small thing of baby wipes.
Yeah, and in the winter, a little packet of tissues that goes in their pocket or something like that. The idea is that we're trying to show children there are lots of different ways to make yourself feel better. And you're the kind of person who sometimes needs a bit of support to do something, but you always get it done. You're that kid. You're that kid. You do it. And so you're that kid.
I'm that kid. That's
You're
right.
that kid.
Thank you. And you're my kid. So thank you
Correct.
very much indeed. All right. So we're going to be back with our favourite part of the show, which has never felt so good. Something that doesn't cost anything at all or very little that you can do with your children to remind you you're very pleased you had them. You love them really and they're rather nice. And also we're going to be answering one of your questions, which you can send to us on
Help My Child's Anxious Pod on our Instagram or helpmychild'sanxious@gmail.com.
This is a question sent to us by a lovely listener on Instagram, which is Help My Child's Anxious Pod. And this person is called, well, Linda. I'm going to call her Linda. She said, don't say her real name in case all her neighbours find out it's her and her child. Anyway, she says she's got a very, very lovely little girl. She's 9 years old, always very jolly and happy.
Yeah.
Suddenly she's showing tremendous anxiety about not just going to school, but also pretty much leaving their house. And she thinks it's got something to do with lions. But they live in, you know, an urban area where they'd have to travel an awfully long way even to go to a zoo to even have a look at a lion. She doesn't know what's going on.
So children will often pick quite an irregular thing to be anxious about that doesn't sound like something that we would think would be a problem at all. And that's because they've misunderstood something. They've interpreted something incorrectly. If you can see that the thing that they are suggesting is scary is something that maybe is a bit scary. Like obviously, I also don't want to hang out with a lion. I think that's very fair. But I also have the understanding that there aren't any lions here. Children have obviously misunderstood something. So I would wonder firstly about what she misunderstood around lions. What have they been learning at school? Have they been reading a book about lions? Have they been somewhere where somebody was dressed up as a lion? What has made this child feel that a threat that's extremely far away is currently very close? So the way that we manage, generally the way we manage worries and specific fears and phobias is we consider firstly, where did this come from, and do we want to sort of like look around the area and see what's going on? But what we're really trying
So
to
it could
do,
be a travelling circus.
it could be
a book
absolutely
that
anything.
they
I mean, I don't
read,
mean
something they learned at
it
school
could
about
be anything.
gladiators. It could be absolutely anything. Something
Yeah.
she's seen on TV and
Yeah,
didn't
I mean,
understand. Or
there
somewhere
are-
on social media that she
There
didn't
are
understand.
there are things in the curriculum that are taught to every child, like the Great Fire of London, that cause children every year to become fearful of fires, because the teachers don't teach the most important part, which is the Great Fire of London taught us a huge amount about fire safety. We no longer build houses that close together. We no longer use flammable building materials for the outside of houses. We use fire alarms and things like that.
Yes.
And our job when our child presents a new fear that may become a phobia, which is just a very, very heightened fear that kind of derails them a little bit more, is to show them factually why that thing is not a threat for us now. Is it a threat in general? Would I want to hang out with lions? No, I really don't. So I can understand how a child has gone from being scared of a wild animal in general because I wouldn't want to be face to face with a lion. So I can say to them, I totally agree with you. Lions are not the one. I definitely am not planning a safari trip. I'm definitely not planning to become a zookeeper. I'm definitely not planning to go to America where they have irregular laws on pets and have a lion as a pet. You know, like that thing during COVID with that fellow Joe Exotic where he had that big zoo with all the lions. I'm not planning on doing any of those things. I'm not going to do any of those things. And so I know it's extremely unlikely I will ever ever meet a lion. I literally won't meet one. So I can understand that they're scary and also not be scared by them.
Yes.
I can hold two things in mind. And I'm going to show them things that make it very clear that we're not close to each other. So, for example, I will show them that we live in England and that most African lions, for example, live in Africa. And I will show them which countries in Africa the lions live in, where they are, how many hours it would take to get on a plane from here to there, and how it would be impossible for a lion to just walk from Africa to the UK because there's a big sea in the middle.
Paddington Bear came all the way from Peru.
Well, I would say he wasn't a particularly threatening bear. I think it was a
He was a very
delight.
friendly
It was
bear,
a
quite right.
delightful bear, and
You're
so I
right.
wouldn't be worried if he was. And also with more anthropomorphism than your average bear or lion, more human characteristics and cuteness than most other animals.
Yeah, true.
And he could speak English. If the lion could speak English, I'm sure we'd get quite a good chat out of him, which would be very, very helpful. So we're trying to show factually we are nowhere near lions. We're not anywhere near them. You don't have to worry. There will be one. There literally cannot be one. I'm happy to make a deal with you that we won't go to a zoo for a year. I'm happy to do any of those things that make it so obvious that we're nowhere near a lion. I'd also talk about the idea that, for example, generally people coming into our house, although people talk about it a lot, is still quite rare. I wouldn't obviously promise there will never be someone we're not expecting in the house, but I would really try and say something similar. I would never promise we'll never be burgled, for example, because we can't promise that. But I would say these are the things I'm doing to our house to make it really safe. I'm pretty sure the lion cannot open the door with a key. If a lion came all the way from a lovely national park in South Africa and then came all the way here, I'd be pretty sure it wouldn't be able to get in the house because I've got this special door. Look at my beautiful door, and I've got the Ring doorbell, so I'd be able to see where it was, call the pest control, tell them to come and get it, and I try and make it factual but light-hearted. I'd show them that I'm not worried about it. If it's a threat that is a present threat like spiders or something that really could be in your house, I would be showing that they're not venomous, that even if a spider were on you, you'd be safe. I'd be looking for facts and figures as to why spiders are generally safe in this country. I would be, if I was taking my children on holiday to Australia where they have got venomous animals, I would explain to my children the things I'm planning to do, like stay in a hotel rather than an Airbnb, for example, that would show you that you'd be more likely to be managed in terms of animal experiences. I'm trying to show my child that there's an element of security in facts about animals or whatever the threat is. It doesn't have to be.
And will you be digging down to try to find out what it was that caused the fear? Something must have precipitated it.
So I'd be
'Cause
saying,
this was
gosh,
a
it's so
lovely, jolly
interesting.
little girl who wasn't worried about lions and suddenly is worried.
I say it's so interesting because we've never talked about lions before. I wonder what happened recently that's made you think about lions. I would really go in with the wondering, with the question how come rather than the question why. The question why implies that I think their answer is already wrong. Why don't you like lions is like, you're so stupid, you don't like lions. How come you don't? How come recently you've been thinking about lions in this way? Is genuinely curious with no prior plans or thoughts about lions.
So you've put a
yourself.
whole grid of
Going in-
facts in place.
I've got my grid of facts. I'm
Yeah.
showing how far away we are and being incredibly soft and gentle with them. And I'm understanding that if you were genuinely scared for your survival, you would be very overwhelmed and you'd be in what we call hypervigilance, which is when you become your own security guard around all things, noises, being close to other people, places that you go, food you might eat. You're going to suddenly be heightened in every area. And this child may have been heightened for a few months. Maybe they learned about it before Christmas and it's only just come out now, which means they've had a drip feed of additional cortisol around this particular issue for months. We're trying to rewire, we're trying to pull that back, we're trying to say there's no need, you're allowed to relax. I guess you've been really scared and now you're allowed to relax. We've talked it through. I've shown you so clearly that there's nothing to worry about. That doesn't mean it might not go away straight away, but we can both see there's nothing to worry about. So you can tell your body that it's allowed to stand down. You can tell your brain we don't have to be worried.
So, Linda, I hope that helps. I hope that's made a difference. And it obviously applies to anybody whose child suddenly develops a pronounced fear of something or some event that they were never scared of before. That's the technique that will help, we hope. All right, so now it's time for Never Felt So Good. This is the fun bit. This is the thing that you can do with your child. And I must say, I did this with my children and
It's
always found
absolutely
it
true.
absolutely hilarious. It really
is
worked
funny,
for me.
and
It
it is
absolutely
true.
tickled me to death. I used to love doing this. So tell me what it is.
So when we were kids, you had a very big bed.
Yes.
And because you were quite posh in the 90s, you had this very posh thing that when my friends came over, I'd always show them because it was extremely cool and really posh, which was like a bit like a big box table at the end of your bed that you had a remote control for like this. And then out of the box would come a television. It was literally
That's
the
how posh
coolest
I
thing
used
ever.
to be.
You don't have that
Don't
anymore.
tell them
Maybe
I lost
you're-
all. I had to move from that house after a divorce, and we never had that again. It was only
Maybe
for
you're not
about
that
5
posh
minutes.
anymore. I'm gonna just
Not
like
that posh anymore.
no,
No.
you haven't anymore got that really cool thing when you go like this, and then the TV goes. You haven't got that anymore.
I
It's
wish
a
I
shame.
did. I wish I
Maybe
did.
that's something that should be our goal for the new year, that we will both have one and be a bit posher. But the idea was it's just only funny. I think there's nothing else to say about it. It's only funny.
Yeah.
So we'd be lying on the bed watching this TV that came out out the box, and we'd always just sort of like focusing that thing where children doing a bit mouth open, having a watch of the telly, and for an absolute laugh. And I guess also,
Go on, just do it.
Okay. So you're watching TV.
Yeah, so I'm watching TV.
Here, just pass that to your sister. Yeah, would you just pass that to your sister, that just there? Yeah, yeah. And could you just give that, oh, I've nearly spilled all over the sofa. Could you just pass that to your sister? Thanks. Would you just pass that over to your sister? So we'd be lying on the bed, just for no particular reason, passing a whole load of completely irregular, unknown objects. And only after a few minutes of passing just such weird things, and also the stash that would build up on the bedside, would you realise that you were playing some sort of strange game without telling anyone.
But I
Just
never mentioned it.
No,
I didn't
random
mention
objects
it.
in a
I was just passing
way.
a teapot and
And
a
then
hairbrush. I never
obviously
mentioned
we'd
anything
all
about it.
once noticed, completely burst out laughing and be completely uncontrollably laughing for a good hour or so after.
Yes.
Because of the incredibly strange, receipt from 1972, a biscuit that you'd half eaten and just passed across the bed. It was completely random, obviously completely free. Obviously, you have to have bought those objects in the first place
Well, no,
to
you
give
didn't
them to
buy
your
them. You
children.
just got them.
They're in your house
in a
already.
motley selection lying around. It's any old thing.
any old thing.
But you don't. The point is, from the parental perspective, you don't explain it.
No.
You don't define it. And at the end, you don't say, "Ah, yes, this was just me playing a joke." You don't say anything.
Now, the
you
funny
just do
thing
it.
was,
You just pass the stuff. That's all you do.
I'd almost
That's it.
completely forgotten about it until this week. I saw a video that I sent to you, and you had also sent to me in a different
I sent
group.
it to you as well.
We both sent it to each other, of a lady. I'll find out the name of the account. We can put it in the description. But this lady who's pretending to be on the phone to somebody, and while she's pretending to be on the phone, she's just passing her child really weird things without mentioning them at all, and the child is just sitting there being like.
But she's not.
But she
speaking
doesn't
about
talk
it.
to him at all. She's pretending to be on the phone, having quite a serious sort of like business-related conversation. She's just like, here's this, here's that, and the child is just holding them in the end like this, with no explanation, and it goes on much longer than you think it will because he's just holding them. She's just pretending to be on the phone, and both of us obviously got this massive, harking back moment, held back moment of our own experience of you passing such weird stuff across the bed, and I just thought. That's it.
Okay, so today's
Yes.
Never Felt So Good is this simple.
Pass some
your
weird
child
stuff
some
to your
weird
kids.
Stuff. If we weren't so polite, we'd say some weird any old thing. And it
not
could be a
swearing
shoe,
on the
one
podcast.
shoe. It can be absolutely an old bun. Any old thing, just pass. Just pass.
And without saying anything,
Yeah.
and wait and see, and maybe have a few things ready to pass, and then see how long it takes our child to notice, and then have a good laugh about it. That's all.
it.
It's very simple. Requires
From
only a
me
small
to
amount of
you.
creative
Well, from me
thought,
to you, and you
and then
to
I'll
us.
pass it to them.
Yes.
But none of us will know what we're holding.
No.
It'll be complicated, but we'll do
But
it.
there's something marvellous about it. I can't even say
Yeah,
what.
I think it's the random nature of it, and just that you could accidentally participate in something that's got no reason without realizing you've done it, and then having to think, why did I just pass a really?
If
large
anyone, if
teapot
your
to my
child asks
sister?
you, why did you do this, or why are you giving me a fork and you don't know. That's it.
Just for
Yeah.
fun. So we recommend that highly.
We
A bit
do.
of random passing from our own experience, then reignited by this lovely video on the internet. This child just looking deeply confused, and they both just have a good laugh together. And we hope that you can pass some random objects to increase your feeling of delight and whimsy as your children are anxious. It might raise their spirits, raise your spirits, and everyone would
And
feel a
not
bit
everything
better.
has an explanation in life.
And
Not
also,
everything-
sometimes things are just fun.
Sometimes it's just completely pointless and just for its own sake. Anyway, we really hope you've enjoyed this podcast, and we really hope that it helps you with your child's anxiety this summer.
Please tell your friends, and please subscribe to our lovely new YouTube channel. We absolutely love having you, and we are really hoping that it's helping people as we get ready for the long, hot summer. Have a good week.